If you're a man over 60 and you've been told it's normal to wake up 3 or 4 times a night just to urinate, let me set the record straight. That is not normal. It is not harmless. And it is not simply a side effect of age you have to accept. The truth is far more interesting and far more empowering. There's one overlooked daily behavior, something you do almost automatically, that is quietly inflaming your prostate, disrupting your sleep, and eroding your quality of life one restless night at a time. I'm Dr. Jonathan Prescott. For over 3 decades, I've devoted my career to men's health, prostate problems, erectile dysfunction, low testosterone, circulation, vitality, you name it. I've helped thousands of men in their 60s, 70s, and even 80s not just survive, but reclaim their energy, their confidence, and their independence. And what I've learned is this: decline is not inevitable. The body still listens. It can still heal, still rebuild, still surprise you if you stop making the mistakes nobody ever told you about. Here's the myth that traps so many men: they think their prostate grows and causes problems simply because of age. That's only half the story. The other half, the more dangerous half, is rooted in habits. Little things: what you eat, what you drink, how you sit, the stress you carry. These micro choices quietly inflame the prostate and amplify the symptoms you blame on birthdays. And what's tragic is that nobody warns you. Not your buddies at the diner, not your family, and too often, not even your doctor. But I will. Because once you see the habits clearly, you can begin to change them. Naturally, safely, without pills that drain your wallet or surgeries that risk your dignity. Over the next few minutes, I'll reveal 10 of the most overlooked daily habits that inflame the prostate and ruin your nights. I'll also give you something hopeful, something actionable. A simple 15-second bedtime ritual my patients use to calm the bladder, ease the prostate, and finally sleep through the night. Now, before we get into the list, let me ask you for something small but powerful. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and hit that red button and turn on the notification bell. That way you'll never miss another message designed specifically for men over 60. And if this introduction speaks to you, type 1 in the comments. If not, type 0. Either way, your voice matters, and I do read every comment. And one more thing, hit that like button. Why? Because when you do, you're not just supporting this channel, you're sending a signal to the algorithm that men's health matters, that your story matters. And I'll give you 3 blessings for that action. May your nights grow quieter. May your mornings return with strength, and may your days ahead feel lighter, steadier, and freer than the ones behind you. Gentlemen, this is not about fear, it's about truth, and truth is liberating. So let's begin. With the very first hidden habit. It's something most men do thinking they are helping their prostate, when in fact they're making things worse. I can't tell you how many times I've sat across from men in their 70s or early 80s who proudly declared, "Doc, I've started drinking less water in the evening so I won't have to get up and use the bathroom at night." One of them was Harold, a retired engineer, age 72. He leaned forward in my office, smiling like he'd discovered a clever shortcut, and told me this was his secret to better sleep. I gently shook my head and said, "Harold, I know you mean well, but that habit may actually be making things worse." It sounds logical, doesn't it? Less water equals less urine, which should mean fewer bathroom trips. But here's the hidden truth most men never hear. When you cut back too much, your urine becomes concentrated. Darker, more acidic, more irritating to the bladder lining. And when your bladder is irritated, it doesn't stay calm, it sends false alarms. It signals your body to urinate even when it's only half full. That's why men like Harold find themselves waking at 1:00 a.m., then again at 3:00 a.m., then once more before sunrise, each time passing just a trickle. This isn't just frustrating, it's exhausting. Many men tell me they feel defeated, as if they'll never experience a full night's rest again. I've had patients nearly in tears saying, "Doc, I just want to sleep through until morning like I used to." I understand that pain, but the solution is not to deprive the body of water. Dehydration itself is one of the most overlooked triggers of prostate inflammation. Without enough hydration, your tissues swell, your bladder overreacts, and your body struggles to flush toxins efficiently. Healing slows to a crawl. So what's the real strategy? It's not about avoiding water, it's about timing and consistency. The goal is to keep your urine light and clear, not dark and concentrated. Sip small amounts of water steadily throughout the day, beginning in the morning and continuing until early evening. Don't wait until you're thirsty. Thirst means you're already behind. Then taper off about 90 minutes before bed, not 4 or 5 hours, just a gentle slowdown. This way your bladder isn't overfilled, but it's not irritated either. When Harold followed this advice, he was skeptical, but within 2 weeks he noticed something remarkable. His bathroom trips dropped from 4 per night to just 1. His sleep was deeper. He woke with more energy and even told me, "Doc, I feel younger than I have in years." That's the power of something as simple as water done right. So here's my advice to you. Water is not your enemy, it is your ally. Treat it with respect, not fear. Use it to calm your bladder, not punish it. Now, if avoiding water isn't the answer, what about the way you spend your afternoons? Many men think resting in a recliner for hours is harmless, even deserved. But could too much sitting actually be fueling prostate problems as well? Let's take a closer look. Let me be honest with you, this one cuts close to home. I love the smell of coffee in the morning. That warm first sip can feel like a friend welcoming you into the day. And for many men I meet, especially in retirement, that ritual becomes almost sacred. A pot of coffee on the table, the newspaper spread out, the hum of the radio, it feels right. But after more than 30 years treating men's health, I've learned that too much caffeine, even from something so familiar, can quietly wreak havoc on the bladder and prostate. Here's why. Caffeine is not just a pick-me-up for the brain, it's a full-system stimulant. It signals the kidneys to produce more urine, and it wakes up the bladder muscles, making them contract earlier and harder than they should. For a younger man, that might only mean an extra trip to the bathroom. But for a man over 60 with a prostate already tender or slightly enlarged, that stimulation can push the body over the edge. Suddenly, you feel urgency more often. You rush to the bathroom only to pass a small stream. You wonder why you never quite feel empty. Samuel, a former truck driver at 68, came to me with exactly this complaint. He said, "Doc, I don't understand. I'm healthy, I walk a little every day, but I'm up half the night." When we went through his daily routine, the picture became clear. A mug of strong coffee at breakfast, sweet tea with lunch, a cola at dinner. It had become such a part of his life that he never questioned it. I told him gently, "Samuel, you're not weak, you're overstimulated." He laughed at first, but agreed to try a change. I asked him to keep his morning coffee, that first cup is fine, but after that, switch to water, herbal tea, or decaf. Within 10 days, Samuel called me. His voice was brighter. "Doc, I'm sleeping longer. I don't wake up with that crushing urgency anymore. My stream feels stronger, and you know what? I don't even miss the caffeine as much as I thought I would." That's the lesson. You don't need to give it up entirely. I wouldn't ask you to, but moderation matters. One small cup in the morning enjoyed slowly is plenty. Beyond that, every refill is a trade-off, a little comfort now for a restless night later. And if caffeine can quietly sabotage your bladder, imagine what certain foods can do. Because the next hidden habit isn't about your coffee mug. It's about what's on your plate. The foods that inflame your hormones, irritate your bladder, and push your prostate toward trouble. Let's talk about them next. George, a retired accountant at 69, came into my office one afternoon looking frustrated. He sighed and said, "Doc, I've cut back on soda. I'm trying to walk more, but I'm still waking up at night and it's driving me crazy." When I asked him to describe a normal day's meals, he chuckled. "Well, breakfast is usually bacon and eggs, lunch maybe a sandwich with deli meat, and I can't give up my spicy chili at dinner." And he thought it was harmless comfort food. But the truth is, what you eat every day doesn't just fill you, it instructs your body. And in George's case, the instructions were all wrong. Processed meats like bacon, sausages, deli slices, or frozen dinners are loaded with chemicals, preservatives, and unhealthy fats. These aren't just empty calories, they are signals of inflammation. When your prostate is already tender, those signals act like pouring gasoline on a fire. They inflame the tissues, disrupt hormone balance, and magnify symptoms like urgency, weak stream, and nighttime trips. Then there's the spice. Chili peppers, hot sauces, and fiery powders can irritate the bladder and pelvic nerves. Think of it this way: if your bladder is already sensitive, spicy food is like scratching at an open wound. It keeps the nerves firing, making you feel like you need to go even when your bladder is only half full. Some men even notice burning sensations or pelvic discomfort, mistaking them for unrelated issues when really it's their diet whispering trouble. But perhaps the most overlooked danger is hormonal. Many processed foods contain trans fats and added sugars that nudge testosterone downward while raising estrogen. That imbalance feeds prostate growth. Over time, it's not just irritation, it's enlargement. And enlargement means more pressure, more swelling, more restless nights. When George agreed to change, I asked him not to overhaul everything at once. Just start small. Swap the bacon for oatmeal or scrambled eggs with spinach. Trade the deli sandwich for grilled chicken or turkey. Replace the evening chili with a hearty vegetable stew seasoned with herbs instead of heavy spice. Within weeks, he came back lighter in spirit. "Doc," he told me, "I feel clearer, stronger, calmer. Even my wife says I seem more myself." That's the hidden power of eating to heal instead of eating out of habit. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to give up every treat, but you do need to be mindful. One choice each day: an avocado instead of chips, a handful of walnuts instead of sausage, can move you closer to peace at night and strength in the morning. And if food can fuel inflammation so powerfully, what about the way we move or fail to move each day? Because the next hidden habit isn't on your plate at all. It's in your chair. And the longer you stay there, the more your prostate suffers. Let's turn to that next. Harold, a 72-year-old retired school principal, once told me proudly, "Doc, I earned this rest. I spent decades on my feet, running schools, solving problems, keeping order. Now I just want to enjoy my recliner, my newspaper, and a good book." He wasn't wrong, he had earned it. But what Harold didn't realize, what so many men don't realize, is that too much sitting quietly works against the prostate. Here's what happens. When you sit for long stretches without standing, you place constant, low-level pressure on the pelvic region. That pressure restricts blood flow to the prostate. Without circulation, the gland doesn't receive enough oxygen and nutrients, and waste products linger longer than they should. Slowly, inflammation builds, swelling creeps in. The bladder grows irritable. And the man who once felt fine begins waking at night, sensing urgency, noticing weaker streams, and wondering, well, the danger lies in how subtle it is. Prostate damage from sitting doesn't arrive all at once. It slips in quietly: an extra bathroom trip here, a restless night there. Before long, you feel chained to the bathroom and chained to your chair, stuck in a cycle of fatigue and frustration. Our bodies were built to move. Movement isn't just about fitness or vanity, it's about circulation, energy, and healing. For men over 60, circulation is one of the most powerful natural defenses against prostate problems. And the good news is you don't need a marathon to make a difference. One simple rule changed Harold's life: every 30 minutes, stand up. Just that. Stand, stretch your arms, roll your shoulders, take a few steps, maybe look out the window. These micro breaks restore blood flow, release pressure, and remind your body it's still alive, still active. Harold set a gentle timer. At first, he found it annoying, but within 2 weeks he noticed deeper sleep. Within a month, he said, "Doc, I feel lighter, my body feels less stiff, even my mood is better." That's the kind of power sitting robs from you and the kind of power standing gives back. It's not about exercise, it's about refusing to let stillness trap you. And if sitting in your chair can quietly sabotage your prostate, imagine what happens when you ignore another natural signal, one even more basic. Because many men train themselves to hold it as long as they can, and that, my friends, is a slow-motion disaster. Let's talk about it next. It always amazes me how many men brush this one off as nothing. Doc, I was stuck in traffic. The game was on, I didn't want to miss the second half. I figured I could wait until the next rest stop. I hear it all the time, and I get it, life gets in the way. But after 30 years treating men's health, I can tell you making a habit of holding your urine is one of the most underestimated causes of prostate trouble. Here's what's really happening. Every time you resist the urge to go, your bladder stretches further than it should. Picture blowing up a balloon just a little too much again and again. That stretching pushes down directly onto the prostate, and at 60 or older, the prostate isn't built to handle that constant pressure. Over time, the tissues become irritated, swollen, even injured at a microscopic level. The result? Weaker stream, that frustrating, incomplete feeling after going. Or the opposite problem, more frequent urgency because the bladder nerves are now confused and overactive. But the risk doesn't stop there. When you hold it too long, your bladder often doesn't empty completely. Small amounts of urine remain behind, and stagnant urine is a breeding ground for bacteria. That means urinary tract infections, which inflame the prostate even more, fueling discomfort and sleepless nights. Edward, a 67-year-old retired firefighter, told me he had trained himself for decades to ignore the urge. On long shifts during emergencies, he considered it a badge of discipline. But now, years into retirement, he was paying the price, up 5 times a night, restless, exhausted, constantly uncomfortable. When I explained the connection, he looked down quietly and said, "Doc, I wish someone had told me this sooner." That moment hit me hard. Because Edward's story isn't unique. Too many men wear their ability to hold it like armor, not realizing it's eating away at their health. So here's what I tell every man when your body says go: listen. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. Your bladder and prostate are a team, and when one suffers, the other does too. Respecting that urge is one of the simplest, most powerful ways to protect your prostate health. And if ignoring nature's call can do this much harm, just imagine what happens when you keep feeding your body the wrong fuel day after day. Because the next hidden habit isn't about what you hold in, it's about what you put on your plate. And for many men, it's the very food they love most: red and processed meat. Let's look at that next. Martin, a 70-year-old retired Navy officer, walked into my office with a firm handshake and a chuckle. "Doc," he said, "I've always been a steak guy. A good ribeye, a slab of brisket, that's how I celebrate life." I smiled because I've heard those words from countless men, and I get it. There's something deeply satisfying about a meat-centered meal. It's tradition, culture, even a reward. But what Martin didn't realize was that his beloved steaks and deli sandwiches were quietly working against his prostate. Here's the problem. Red and processed meats, beef, pork, bacon, sausages, cold cuts, are packed with saturated fats and preservatives. These compounds drive low-grade inflammation throughout the body. And when your prostate is already tender, that inflammation is like fuel poured on a smoldering fire. Swelling increases, hormones get thrown out of balance, and urinary symptoms worsen. Weaker stream, urgency, interrupted nights. Science backs this up. Multiple studies have linked high consumption of red and processed meat not only to prostate enlargement, but also to a higher risk of more serious prostate conditions, including cancer. Why? Because these meats alter hormone activity, increase oxidative stress, and strain the cardiovascular system, all of which circle back to prostate health. When I explained this to Martin, he frowned. "Doc, are you saying I can't eat steak anymore?" I shook my head. Not at all, but moderation is the key. Think of it as balance, not banishment. I suggested he cut red meat to once or twice a week and replace some meals with lean proteins like chicken, fish, beans, or lentils. The change wasn't easy at first, but within a month, Martin returned with a surprising report. "Doc," he said, "I didn't realize how heavy I'd been feeling until I stopped. My stomach feels calmer, I'm sleeping longer, and I don't miss the meat as much as I thought I would." That's the hidden power of shifting your plate. Your body responds faster than you expect. You don't need to give up everything you love, but if you reduce red and processed meat and add more foods that come from the earth, greens, berries, nuts, whole grains, you give your prostate a chance to heal instead of struggle. And if what we eat can carry this much weight, imagine the impact of what we breathe. Because the next hidden habit doesn't come from your kitchen, it comes from smoke. Not just if you light up yourself, but even if the people around you do. Let's face that truth next. Raymond, a 72-year-old former construction worker, sat across from me one afternoon with a weathered face and a strong voice. "Doc," he said, "I quit smoking 10 years ago, but my prostate's still giving me trouble." I asked him about his habits, and after a pause, he admitted, "Well, every Friday night I meet up with my buddies for poker, and they smoke like it's 1975. He chuckled, but his eyes betrayed the frustration. What Raymond didn't realize is that the prostate is exquisitely sensitive to environmental toxins. Cigarette smoke, whether you inhale it directly or simply sit nearby, bathes your body in thousands of harmful chemicals. These toxins don't just irritate the lungs. They constrict blood vessels, cut oxygen delivery, and create a state of chronic inflammation that seeps into every organ, including the prostate. Here's what happens inside. With each exposure, your blood vessels tighten and circulation slows. Less oxygen, fewer nutrients, and more inflammatory compounds flood the pelvic region. Over time, the prostate tissue stiffens, the healing process falters, and symptoms creep in: urgency, disrupted flow, nighttime trips, discomfort. And if that weren't enough, secondhand smoke can elevate the risk of more serious problems, including prostate cancer. This isn't fear-mongering, it's physiology. The older we get, the slower our bodies detoxify these poisons. That means even just a little exposure each week can set you back months in recovery. When I explained this to Raymond, he looked stunned. "So even though I quit, the smoke around me could still be causing trouble?" I nodded. "Yes, you've done the hardest part by quitting. Now protect that victory by avoiding secondhand smoke whenever possible." To his credit, Raymond took action. Instead of poker at the smoky bar, he invited his friends to his house. He set the ground rule: smoke-free games. At first, they grumbled. But within weeks, something amazing happened. His urgency eased, his sleep improved, his energy returned. He told me, "Doc, it feels like someone turned down the volume on my discomfort." The lesson is clear. Quitting smoking is one of the greatest gifts you can give your prostate, your heart, and your future. But protecting yourself from secondhand smoke is just as vital. Don't compromise your health for the sake of social comfort. Your body is still worth guarding. And here's something else to consider. Smoking isn't the only habit men overlook. Another one is far less obvious but equally dangerous. It has nothing to do with cigarettes or cigars. It has everything to do with ignoring maintenance, skipping the checkups that could save your life. Let's turn to that next. Dennis, a 64-year-old retired salesman, sat down in my office with a half smile and said, "Doc, I know I've put on some weight around the middle, but how much harm can a belly really do?" It was the kind of question asked half in jest, half in worry. I looked him in the eye and said, "Dennis, more than you think, especially when it comes to your prostate. See, belly fat isn't just extra padding under your shirt. It's metabolically active tissue. That means it behaves less like a cushion and more like a chemical factory. The fat around your waist pumps out inflammatory compounds, alters hormone balance, and interferes with circulation. And one of its most insidious tricks is converting testosterone, the very hormone that supports male vitality, into estrogen. That hormonal shift fuels prostate growth, leaving men with swelling, pressure, and the relentless urge to go. But it doesn't end there. Belly fat also disrupts blood sugar control and strains the cardiovascular system. That means weaker circulation in the pelvic region, slower healing, and a body primed for inflammation. For the prostate, it's the perfect storm: low testosterone, high estrogen, poor circulation, constant irritation. Dennis admitted that he had always brushed off the middle spread as a normal part of aging, but his symptoms told another story: waking 3 or 4 times a night, feeling drained in the morning, and battling a constant sense of heaviness. When we laid out the science, he finally understood that the belly wasn't just cosmetic, it was chemical. The good news: you don't have to lose 30 pounds to see results. Studies show even a modest 5% reduction in body weight can noticeably improve prostate symptoms. For Dennis, it started with 3 small steps: a 15-minute walk in the morning, swapping sugary sodas for water, and adding a serving of leafy greens to dinner each night. Within 3 weeks, he noticed he wasn't waking up as often. He told me, "Doc, it's not just my prostate. It feels like I'm getting a piece of myself back." That's the hidden truth. Your waistline tells a story. When you take steps to reclaim it, you're not just tightening a belt notch. You're restoring balance, protecting hormones, and freeing your prostate from chemical assault. And while weight gain is a powerful but often overlooked saboteur, it's not the only hidden force men battle. There's another culprit just as dangerous, one that doesn't sit on your plate or around your waist, but inside your mind. It's the silent burden too many men carry without ever speaking of it. Let's uncover it next. One of the things I value most about this channel is the conversation we're building together. Every video, men from across the country and even across the world leave comments, share their struggles, or ask tough questions, and I promised I would listen. Tonight, I want to pause and respond to a handful of those questions because your voices matter. Question 1 from Mark in Ohio. Doc, I drink water all day like you said, but I'm still waking up twice a night. Am I doing something wrong? Answer. Mark, first of all, you're on the right track. Waking up twice is actually better than 4 or 5 times, which means your body is already improving. But don't overlook the other triggers: caffeine in the afternoon, spicy dinners, or even stress before bed. Water is step 1, but pairing hydration with relaxation and mindful eating is step 2. Don't get discouraged, you're already moving forward. Question 2 from James in Florida. My father is 75 and he says all this prostate advice is nonsense. He thinks waking up at night is just what old men do. What should I tell him? Answer. James, I've sat across from men like your father more times than I can count. Pride is a powerful force. Sometimes it's easier to accept discomfort than to admit something can be done. I'd tell him this: aging is inevitable, suffering is optional. Share this video with him and remind him that wisdom isn't ignoring the problem, it's adapting to live better. Question 3 from Daniel in California. Doc, be honest, are you just trying to scare us into eating kale and drinking herbal tea? Answer. Daniel, I laughed when I read this. No, I'm not in the kale business. My job isn't to scare you, it's to wake you up. If fear got your attention, so be it, but the real message is hope. You don't have to overhaul your life with green smoothies. You just have to stop stacking small daily mistakes that quietly drain your strength. A steak here and there, fine, but balance it with something that heals. That's not fear, that's freedom. Question 4 from Peter in Texas. I've smoked for 50 years. What's the point of quitting now? Damage is already done. Answer. Peter, I hear the resignation in that question, but let me tell you, the body is remarkably forgiving. I've seen men in their 70s quit smoking and within months feel sharper, sleep better, breathe easier, and yes, even notice relief in their prostate symptoms. Quitting at 70 isn't wasted time, it's borrowed time returned. Every cigarette you don't smoke is one step toward healing. Question 5 from an anonymous commenter. This is all just common sense dressed up in medical language. Men have survived for thousands of years without bedtime rituals or water timing schedules. Answer: fair point. But here's the reality. Men thousands of years ago didn't live as long as you do. They didn't carry decades of processed food, long sitting hours, or industrial toxins in their bodies. Common sense is powerful, but modern habits require modern countermeasures. And if common sense were enough, you wouldn't be here, would you? Gentlemen, I share these responses not to lecture, but to remind you that this channel is a dialogue. You ask, I answer. You challenge, I listen. And together we push back against the silence that too often surrounds men's health. Now, as valuable as it is to answer questions, there's still one habit too many men neglect: the habit of checking in with their doctor before problems escalate. Let's explore why skipping those yearly checkups can be more dangerous than you think. Charles, a 66-year-old retired teacher, sat across from me in a crisp shirt and neat slacks. He was polite, intelligent, and clearly uncomfortable. For over a year, he had been battling frequent urination, low energy, and a dull ache in his lower abdomen. Yet this was his very first visit to a urologist. When I asked why he had waited so long, he gave me the same answer I've heard from countless men: "Doc, I just didn't want to know." That mindset is common. Strong, hardworking men often avoid the doctor until the pain, the urgency, or the fatigue is too loud to ignore. Fear plays a role. Pride plays a role. Sometimes embarrassment too. But here's the reality: avoiding the checkup doesn't protect you. It leaves you blind to what's really happening. The prostate is a quiet organ. When it begins to swell or struggle, it rarely announces itself with pain. The warning signs are subtle: an extra trip to the bathroom, a weaker stream, a restless night. By the time the symptoms are obvious, the problem is often far more advanced than you realize. But caught early, many prostate issues, even cancer, can be managed with lifestyle changes, natural strategies, or minimally invasive treatments. That's why yearly checkups matter. A simple physical exam, a PSA blood test, and yes, sometimes a digital rectal exam. These aren't punishments, they are tools. They give us information, and information gives you options. It's like taking your car in for an oil change. You don't wait until the engine seizes, you check it to prevent a breakdown. Why should your body deserve less care than your car? When Charles finally came in, we ran a few tests. Fortunately, we caught his issue early. With dietary adjustments, stress management, and a mild prescription, he turned things around in just a few months. He told me later, "Doc, I wish I hadn't waited. I could have saved myself a year of worry." Gentlemen, listen carefully. Don't wait for the crisis. Don't wait for the sleepless nights, the infections, the emergency hospital visits. Schedule your prostate checkup once a year, not because something feels wrong, but because you want to stay well. That simple act is one of the greatest investments you can make in your future. And speaking of investments, there's one more force we need to uncover before we close. It isn't food, water, or cigarettes. It's the silent weight that men carry inside themselves, often without ever speaking of it. Stress, the hidden saboteur. Let's tackle it now. Albert, a 65-year-old retired banker, looked polished on the outside, suit pressed, hair neat, polite smile. But when he sat in my office, I could sense the weight he carried inside. He admitted almost in a whisper, "Doc, I'm not the kind of man who talks about stress. I just keep moving." His words struck me because they echo what so many men over 60 feel. To be a man is to endure, to keep silent, to carry the burden without complaint. But here's the truth medical science has finally proven: chronic stress doesn't just live in the mind. It lives in the body, and the prostate feels it. When you carry stress day after day, your body releases cortisol, the stress hormone. Cortisol fuels inflammation, tenses pelvic muscles, disrupts sleep, and lowers testosterone. Over time, it creates a storm: higher estrogen, lower testosterone, more sensitivity to pressure, and a prostate primed for swelling. Think about the habits we've already uncovered: processed foods, belly fat, caffeine, smoking. Stress makes every single one of them worse. It's the amplifier, the hidden hand pulling the strings behind the curtain. That's why a man who seems fine one year can suddenly collapse into a cycle of sleepless nights, urgency, and fatigue the next. Albert admitted that after retirement, his mind never slowed down. Worry about money, worry about his health, worry about his purpose now that the long workdays were gone. He clenched his jaw at night. He tossed and turned, restless, uneasy, and his prostate paid the price. So how do we fight something as invisible as stress? Not with shame, not with denial, but with strategy. Small, intentional acts of calm. 10 minutes of deep breathing before bed. A walk at sunrise to reset the nervous system. A weekly journal to empty the mind onto paper. A connection with friends who remind you that you're not carrying the load alone. And perhaps most important of all, giving yourself permission to rest without guilt. When Albert embraced these steps, his life began to change. Within weeks, he noticed fewer nighttime trips. His sleep deepened, his mood lifted, and one day he told me, "Doc, I didn't realize how much I was holding until I let go." Gentlemen, stress is not weakness. Stress is a call to action. Leadership isn't just about guiding others. It's about leading yourself toward health. Managing stress is one of the greatest acts of strength a man can perform because it builds the foundation for every other habit to succeed. And now we've uncovered all 10 hidden habits, plus the voices of men just like you in our Q&A. But before we finish, I want to leave you with something simple yet powerful, a reminder that you are not broken, and a nightly ritual that can help you reclaim your peace. Let's bring it all together. Over the years, I've sat across from hundreds of men, retired mechanics, veterans, teachers, bankers, fathers, grandfathers, each carrying the same heavy question: what's happening to me? Am I broken? I've seen the frustration in their eyes, the embarrassment in their voices, the quiet fear that life has slipped away and can never return. And after 3 decades in medicine, let me say this with certainty: you are not broken, you are not weak, you are simply uninformed. Tonight, we've uncovered 10 of the most overlooked habits that quietly fuel prostate problems. Cutting back too much on water, overloading caffeine, eating processed and spicy foods, sitting too long, holding urine, indulging in too much red meat, smoking, carrying belly fat, skipping checkups, and living under constant stress. On their own, each habit might seem harmless. But stacked together day after day, year after year, they create the perfect storm: swollen prostate, restless nights, fading energy, weakened confidence. But here's the good news: storms can be calmed. The same way these habits chip away at your health, small intentional changes can rebuild it. You don't need a miracle drug. You don't need risky surgery. What you need is awareness, action, and consistency. A glass of water at the right time, a stretch every 30 minutes, a choice for chicken instead of sausage, a deep breath before bed. These are not sacrifices, they are strategies, and they give your body the chance to heal, to reset, to restore. I want you to picture something. Imagine tonight, instead of staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m., you're sleeping soundly. Imagine waking in the morning not groggy, not heavy, but refreshed, steady, strong. Imagine your wife or partner looking at you with that spark of pride again, not because you're perfect, but because you're present, awake, alive. That's what these choices can deliver. One of the simplest tools I've given my patients is the 15-second bedtime ritual. It's not magic, but it feels that way. A short breathing practice, a gentle posture adjustment, a release of pelvic tension. 15 seconds, that's all. Men who commit to it night after night report fewer bathroom trips, calmer sleep, and greater control. It works not because it's complicated, but because it honors the body's natural wisdom. Gentlemen, don't wait until the crisis comes. Don't wait for 5 bathroom trips a night, for infections, for lost intimacy, for regret. Start now. Choose one habit to change tonight. Build from there. Progress, not perfection. If this message has spoken to you, take one more small action. Hit the like button. It tells me and it tells the world that men's health matters. Share this video with a brother, a friend, a neighbor who may be silently suffering, and leave a comment below. Which habit surprised you the most? Which change will you start today? I read every single response. And as you do, accept this blessing. May your nights grow peaceful, your mornings return with strength, and your years ahead be fuller than the years behind. You are not broken, you are informed, and with that knowledge you are free to heal.